Welcome back to Entrepreneur Money Stories. Are you a growing business owner who is hiring as part of your growth strategy? Well, I have an unpopular opinion for you on how to hire and save yourself from trouble with the IRS. Now, there is a ton of confusion about the distinction between employees versus contractors. In this video, I am going to break down the differences, help you understand when your contractors should become employees, and explain to you why it's important for your business to stay compliant. I am your host, Danielle Hayden, and I know as a fellow business owner, it can be very confusing understanding the different tax forms, W-2, W-9, 1099s, 941s. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I am here to make it easy for you. In this video, we will cover everything you need to know about who should get what form, when to hand out which forms, how payment processing platforms like PayPal or Venmo can affect your taxes, and the unpopular opinion about employees. So if you are ready and you want to hear the secrets to success by top entrepreneurs, I want you to listen in carefully. Here's my conversation with Kelsey, digging into everything you need to know about employees and 1099s. All right, welcome back to Entrepreneur Money Stories. Kelsey, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I always love being here. And it's actually been quite a while since I've been on the podcast. So this is really exciting for me.
Yeah. So Kelsey, love starting at the very beginning so that we can define things for people so that they clearly understand what the hell we're talking about. Because when we start throwing out these IRS terms, I know it sounds like we're speaking another language. So what is a 1099 contractor? How do you define that? And then what is a W-9?
Yeah, those are the two terms that we're going to throw out there first. So a W-9 is a request for information. So it's just a very simple form that you'll give to your contractor, and we'll break that one down in a second. All that's on there is their name, their address, their entity type. So if they're a sole proprietor, individual, LLC, partnership, S Corp, C Corp, one of those, and their EIN or social security number. That's pretty much it. Then they sign the form and give it back to you. And all it does is give you all the information that you need to fill in their 1099s at the end of the year. So a 1099 is just, again, a very simple form, but a very important form that gets sent to that contractor and to the IRS. That is just basically the sum of all of the payments that you've sent to them in that calendar year. So IRS says 1099s are due by January 31st. And that is for January through December of the year prior.
Yeah. So think of it as their payroll stub, right? Like they're not getting a paycheck from you, or if they're a freelancer, any other company. So it's important that they have a record of how much they've been paid from your company and others so that they can file their tax return.
That's right. And we really wanted to go into best practices for collecting these W-9s for your contractors. We recommend to all of our clients and for all of you, our listeners, to collect these W-9s as you're paying your contractors throughout the year. So even if we've heard so many times like, oh, I'm only going to pay them once, even if you think you're not going to work with those contractors on an ongoing basis, best practice is ask for the W-9 before you send them your first payment. And this just ensures that you have all of the information that you need in case you end up having to file a 1099 for them at the end of the year. I've seen it so many times where we're scrambling at the end of the year to get the W-9s because we didn't get it throughout the year. Now we don't have the information to file the 1099s. It's going to be late. Or the relationship went sour and the contractor is not responding, not going to respond. And here you are.
The worst one.
Yeah, can't file a 1099.
I like the best practice of do not pay any contractor until you have the W-9 in hand. Make that a practice that when you are doing business with somebody new, that those funds don't ever leave your bank account until you have the W-9. And Kelsey, where would we store the W-9? So once the business owner has this, you can do this all electronically. You don't need to see them in person. This is an electronic form. Once they have that, where should somebody store that?
That's right. And you can get this from the IRS website as a downloadable, fillable PDF. And you can store it electronically. That's plenty sufficient for the IRS. So if you use Dropbox, Google Docs, SharePoint, share file, whatever it may be. You can store it in one of your dedicated folder wherever you keep all of your financial information. You just need to have access to it in case you ever get audited and the IRS says, why didn't you send them a 1099? And then you will whip out your W-9 and say, this is why they indicated they are an S Corp. And we will get into why that matters. But
I like having them by year. So whatever your electronic filing system is, have all of your W-9s filed by year so that you can really quickly, easily access that information. All right, let's talk about who actually do we need to be collecting a W-9 from?
any individual or business that is not an S Corp that has performed a service for you. So if they redesigned your website, if they did some one-off projects for you, if they did your landscaping, if they cleaned your office, virtual assistants, I mean, I could go on and on for days, but anyone that performs a service for you, basically, that you pay them by cash or Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and there are caveats to that we'll get into. Basically, anything but a credit card. Then they will be eligible for a 1099 if you paid them through those payment methods, $600 or more in that year.
Now, the $600, I think this is what gets people. So a lot of people will say, I'm not going to collect W-9 from that person until I paid them the $600 because I don't want them to think that they're going to get a 1099 from me until they're owed it. And I think that's a mistake that we make. Collect them now. Collect them before you hit the $600. There's nothing wrong with having that information. If you don't hit the $600 and you don't need to send them a 1099, you'll still have that W-9 in your file. No worries, right? Not a big deal just to have that extra information.
And just think about it as an employee, either your employees or you as an employee, you're not going to pay employees without them filling out their appropriate paperwork first. And no company is going to pay you as an employee without you filling out your employer paperwork. So think about it in that way as well.
That's a really good point. I've never started a job where it was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that later. Usually, back in the day, they would lock you in a conference room and say, come back out when everything's filled out. I think that is really, really helpful. Let's talk about the Cash App, PayPal situation. I think the IRS is working really hard to catch up and provide regulations and rules to capture all of these, especially as people are using personal Venmo for business transactions or personal PayPal for business transactions. When does somebody need to send a 1099 and not?
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, that what I'm about to say is true as of the day that we're recording this. The IRS changes their guidelines all of the time. So if you're listening to this in the future, this may not be pertinent anymore. But the IRS is really trying to push these payment processors to issue 1099s themselves to these people. So if that's the case, if you have a business PayPal or a business Venmo, you shouldn't have to issue the 1099. It should be treated like a credit card payment, and Venmo and PayPal will issue the 1099. But if you're using a personal Venmo, I would just cover yourself and just go ahead and issue that 1099. Cash App, usually it's that responsibility is on you to file the 1099. As of today, they are not required to. I'm trying to think of a few others like Apple Pay. If you pay anyone through Apple Pay, I would just go ahead and file that 1099. And if you're unsure if that processor files 1099s, you can usually just look it up on their website.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's dive into talking about the difference between a contractor and employee. Anything else on 1099s or W-9s that we didn't mention? I feel like you've captured everything, but anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, I feel like we did. I think the question now is, well, I don't know if this team member should be an employee or a contractor.
Yeah, I think this is, I think I say this a lot, like the number one question, but this is a major question that we get from business owners and our clients is, when is it time to put people on payroll? And I want to say that this is an excellent time to start considering it. Now, this episode is going to launch. It's still going to be summertime when this episode launches. And people think that I'm the crazy person for starting to talk about taxes and year end in the summer. So I know everybody's still in summer mode and has their bathing suits on. And I'm over here with our winter coat preparing. preparing for winter. However, I think it's really important to think about that prep now so that you can make really good business decisions between now and year end, because everybody is rushing to get to the payroll companies and 1099 and their money teams in December and January. So one, we appreciate you for doing your pre-work. And I know the payroll companies do as well. So if there's somebody on your team that you're thinking about moving to an employee, this is the best time to start that conversation with your money team. We set up payroll for our clients. We actually just did a really fun Facebook Live with Sarah. Sarah heads up our kind of payroll department, and we talked about our onboarding process. So for anybody who's like, oh my God, the thought of payroll sounds completely daunting, I don't know how to even begin that. That is something that we take off of the plate for clients and business owners so that you don't have to worry about actually doing the setup. But it takes a little bit of time, and we don't want to be doing it when everybody else is trying to contact the payroll companies in December. So, Kelsey, how do we know when it's time to move our contractors to an employee? Have you heard yourself saying, I'm scared to invest money in my business because what if it doesn't come back? I don't know how much to pay myself, so I won't take a paycheck yet. I'm reinvesting in the business anyway. Or how about, I'm not going to spend any more money until I know exactly where my money is going. Well, let me tell you, you are not alone. In fact, we have heard all of these stories and more throughout the last 9 years at Kickstart Accounting Inc. And that is why we have created the Money Mindset Mastery Framework to finally unlock and overcome these stories, to finally feel confident in your financial decisions and pay yourself what you deserve. The first step to create a profitable and successful business is to first understand your money mindset. Find out your money mindset personality type by going to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz. I can't wait to hear what your money mindset type is.
Yeah, we were joking in one of our previous recordings of this episode that if you're one of those business owners scrambling in January to get all of your W-9s ready, that this episode is for you. But yeah, let's figure out if this team member should be a contractor or an employee. Guidelines around contractor are basically who has the control. As a contractor, that team member has the control. So you're just telling them, hey, I need this project done, or I need this task done. I don't care when you do it. I don't care how you do it. I just need it done maybe by this date. And then the contractor goes and uses their own processes, their own equipment on their own time and gets that task or project completed for you. They usually invoice you. They should be invoicing you because they are separate from you. They're not associated with your business in any way. They are separate from the business. And then an employee, the employer, you, the business, has control of how they do that task or project, what they use. So are they using company computers, company iPad, any special equipment owned by the company? That is all more like an employee. If you're working with them on like a permanent, ongoing basis, that's geared more towards an employee.
I think the big thing that differentiates it is as soon as you want control, as you build as a brand, you approach a place in your business where you have a specific way that you want things done. And so when you want to start having things completed with your standard operating procedures, when you want things completed according to your brand guidelines, it's usually when we need to start looking at employees. Also, if you want to be able to give feedback and training or equipment, I heard a client recently talk about how they wanted to take their team on a retreat, and it was a lot of contractors. So how do we kind of hold that boundary? And now it's different in different states. Some states are more strict than others. So definitely see your state guidelines. However, I think as soon as you want to start controlling how they do things, you want to be able to give them feedback. You've established yourself as a brand and you want things being done according to that brand. And that's the time to really start thinking about it.
That's right. And I think you had mentioned this previously, but who is the expert here is kind of like a general way of thinking about it. If that team member is the expert, they're advising you, they're kind of telling you how it should be done, that's probably a contractor. If you're telling the team member how to do it, you're probably the expert and they are probably the employee. There have been a few times where, a client has explained to me what their role is, what that team member's role is. And it really is a little unclear, a little geared towards contractors and a little to employee. And in those cases, I recommend erring on the side of caution and making them an employee. You can get in trouble for making an employee a contractor, but you cannot get in trouble for making a contractor an employee. And there can be serious repercussions if you were to ever get audited and you were paying somebody as a contractor and the IRS deemed actually they should have been an employee this entire time. It could be very costly for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the other benefits of making somebody an employee, and why do small business owners want contractors?
So for contractors, it's easier and it's cheaper. It doesn't have to be a heavy lift to have an employee, but if you don't know that or you just don't want to deal with it, then there's no real paperwork other than a W-9 for a contractor. And to pay them, all you do is just send them a payment via Venmo or check, whatever it may be. It's super easy. And they keep the whole amount. For ease and convenience, people like to be a contractor.
I think the other request I've seen from people that contractors want to be taxed as a 1099 so that they can take some tax deductions. So sometimes it's a request by that individual so that they can tax plan for themselves. They have things that they want to take as a tax deduction. Sometimes that is the scenario. And if they really want to be a contractor, then we need to watch how we're speaking to them, what projects we're having them do, and how we treat them.
You'll have to structure their role so that they are indeed a contractor to protect yourself, protect your business. And there are a lot of opportunities by making them an employee. You can offer benefits, which helps with retention. You don't have to keep getting new team members and creating new processes and stunt the growth of the business. It really is a chance to grow your team on a long-term basis.
I think the big one is training, right? Like being able to grow and develop and give feedback, give training. You might want to be able to require a uniform depending on what your business is. Again, standard operating procedures. You want to be able to give them some guidelines for them to work within. For the employee, it can be the option for benefits, 401k, PTO time when you're ready. I do want to be clear. This is a question that we get a lot. Just because you hire an employee, like if they're working for you part-time, if they're a part-time hourly employee, you do not have to give benefits. So don't let that be a barrier. Like I can't bring on employees because I can't afford benefits. You do not have to pay them benefits.
Yes. Every state's guidelines are a little bit different regarding benefits. So reach out to your state and look at the guidelines. But I don't know of any states that require part-time benefits. I know California is a very employee leading state, so they do have some requirements for benefits for full-time that most states do not require. But
I think there's a few other states that are, I think New Mexico, Colorado, they're leaning towards the employee. So definitely depending on where you live, definitely look at it. We use Gusto for payroll with all of our clients. We absolutely love Gusto. And when we do your payroll setup, Gusto will walk you through all of your state requirements. And so we will make sure that that's communicated to you. If you're setting up your own payroll, make sure you're talking to that payroll company and understanding the state's regulations and guidelines. Anything else that you want to leave the audience with that are the most important reminders that they need to take away from this episode?
I think first and foremost, collect your W-9s. A lot of the times those are very telling in whether you're required to issue them a 1099 at the end of the year. And then just track throughout the year who all you are slated to issue that 1099 for, just so you're ready. It can be time consuming, especially if you're, doing your own DIY bookkeeping or don't have an accounting software, keeping track of the total of those payments for the year so that everything is already kind of done for you by the end of the year.
Talk to your money team. I know we say this a lot, but contact your bookkeeper, your CPA, have this conversation with them. If you're unsure, like if you're leaving this conversation unsure, contact them, talk to them about your very specific situation. If you are ready to bring on employees, if you're ready to take that leap, that next step, don't let fear stand in your way. There are teams out there to be able to help you and support you in getting that set up. So ask for help. You do not have to be a superhero. You don't have to do it all on your own. Take off your Superwoman cape and ask for help.
You don't have to do everything yourself, and that is just not where your time is best spent. You stick to what you know best, and bookkeeping and accounting, this is something that is a very easy, I want somebody else to deal with this because they can just do better and faster than I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I joke, you don't want me in Canva and we don't want you in QuickBooks. All right. Well, for all of our listeners, thank you so much for being here. I hope today's episode was valuable. If you need help, please go to kickstartaccountinginc.com. You could book a call. You'll talk to Kelsey, Aubrey, or myself. You can always send us a DM at Kickstart Accounting on Instagram. We manage all of those direct messages, so you can message us there. We are going to continue to show up for you and be a free resource for you and your business as a business owner. So if you have content that you want to hear, shoot us a DM. We'll make sure that we answer those questions. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I don't want you to miss out on anything. We built out our content calendar for the rest of this year, and I am really stoked about everything that we have coming your way. So I don't want you to miss a thing.
There are definitely some very exciting things coming, so be sure to subscribe.